Ready? I'm rolling.
All right, the three species we're looking as we're removing plants are first the Pacific chorus frog, Pseudacris regila, and that can be either green or brown. Most likely we'll only find a couple here, um, but we're definitely looking out for that one primarily. The second animal is the California lance-toothed snail, which is a small flat snail, usually half an inch across, even less than that though. And finally the California slender salamander, which you want to be really careful with picking up because it's a fragile creature which will lose its tail if it's handled roughly. And this one will usually be found under rocks and flagstones and pieces of concrete, also at the base of plants near the roots.
How common are these frogs in the immediate Bay Area in
Well,
San
the
Francisco?
frog, one of the reasons why we're focusing on the frog is that there's only one breeding area left within the city confines that we know of, which is a couple of blocks down the street here near Potrero Hill. It would really help boost the breeding population if we could capture a couple of juveniles or rescue a couple of juveniles from here and move them over to that area. It would, really help mix up the gene pool for them and stuff because there isn't that many of these guys left these days, certainly not in the city. And so that's the main focus animal. The other two, the California lance-toothed snail, we're interested in because it has the potential for being used as an animal in gardening. It is a omnivorous snail which also feeds on other snails and also on slugs. So it would be helpful in controlling unwanted mollusk populations in gardens if there was a way of, defining some sort of protocol where we could breed these in captivity perhaps and use them in that way as a natural form of pest control instead of pesticides and other ways of controlling mollusks, which usually involves putting chemicals in the ground. And the slender is not what I would call rare. Most people that have pesticide-free gardens will find them in their gardens, but it's still a vertebrate, and we'd like to preserve as many of these as we could as well, just for that reason that it is another living creature that we wouldn't want to just see bulldozed over. It seems that the area's been kind of treated like just, an open lot, and a bulldozer's been here once before and cleared it out to a great degree, but we feel that these animals are worth saving to some extent just because of the fact that they are here.
When did you get involved with the garden consulting?
Well, I just started on this project last week. I was called in to do some early work, just kind of do a survey, see what was here, whether or not it was even worth coming back out and trying to save anything. And we found that there's definitely reason to come back because some animal presence was found. So I've been working on this project for a week, but I've been working with reptiles and amphibians in various capacities for about 3 years now.
And it is it's a sensitive site.
Yeah. Well, it's Pacific tree frogs did breed here last year. That's really the reason why we're here. These two frogs that David has been hearing, at least two frogs that he's been hearing, were born here. So this site at one time had the potential to be a breeding site for Pacific tree frogs, and it's been, at this point it's already condemned to be destroyed, and it's kind of just showing us that there could be other sites like this around the city, which, if people were to stop long enough to look and see what's really there, maybe they wouldn't, develop them so quickly and just get rid of them as, just another piece of open space. I mean, if you look at what's going on, just recently, yesterday in the paper, there's a story about two spaces up near Twin Peaks, open spaces that the city is considering selling to developers and using for parking spaces. And I mean, do we really need more parking spaces as opposed to green areas where birds can nest and amphibians and other invertebrates can live in? I mean, it's really silly to even consider that, in my opinion, but they're finding it pretty legitimate to consider turning open green areas in San Francisco, of which we have so few, into more parking spaces or just blacktop to ease maintenance or whatever the excuse may be. But mostly it's probably just to put some money back in their coffers, because that seems to always be the end of anything that's being done anymore as far as green stuff is concerned. But we can't just look at green areas as places to exploit. We have to realize that things live there and they're really vital to helping people live a better life, I think. I mean, David will probably tell you the difference between living next to an open green area that has birds and things living there and how different it's going to feel in a few months when it's all concrete and cars parked and maybe traffic going through here. And it's a shame that a place like this, which is almost like an oasis in our city, where it's really quite. I mean, you look out in the water. If you want to swing the camera out, you got greater scaup, you got a cormorant, you've got herring's gull, you've got all kinds of birds that feed out here. And now this little inlet, which has been kept relatively clean, is going to be exposed to runoff from traffic areas and from roads. And we're going to, possibly see these birds going somewhere else, because the fish that they're going to feed on are going to go. They're going to be, polluted out of here. And it's still a pretty clean area as far as I'm concerned. You could really have animals living here and breeding here, but now it seems to be all over with and it's gone.
So what other considerations are there outside of the living creatures while you're doing this kind of plant removal?
Well, the animals are the main focus. We obviously want to preserve as many of the plants and hopefully use them for community gardens and things like that. I don't really see too many native plants here, but these are all, healthy, thriving plants that could be transplanted somewhere and, provide oxygen, air filtering, etc., things that plants do. Though that coyote bush right there is a native, and from the size of it, it's probably at least 30 years old. So, this is a key area.
Yeah. So are the root balls intermingling? What kind of considerations do you do when you're actually jamming a shovel into the ground?
Well, we're going to damage some root structures. That's inevitable. But I think if these plants are transplanted quickly and given good conditions, there's no reason to not think that they can recover pretty well from it. I'm sure, we'll lose I'd say a third from gardening experience when you're transplanting mature plants like this that have been growing in a semi-natural state where they're not all, boundaried off. We'll probably lose a few, but, and there's also a lot of stuff like rocks here, which are valuable for, people keeping them in the gardens. I mean, if you try to landscape a garden these days, I could tell you it's going to be like $1,200-1,300 just to buy rocks, a couple hundred pounds of rocks like these, just to, make your garden look nicer. So there can be places there for animals to live. And here, this stuff is just all going to go to the dump. I mean, they're saying they're going to make money here, but I'm seeing a huge loss, really. I mean, not only are you putting a gash on the earth, opening up this ground and then covering it with more concrete, which is the last thing we need in the city at this point. You're, also wasting a lot of resources here. I mean, all these plants are going to be gone, and rocks are going to be destroyed, and all this stuff has value to a lot of people. Maybe not the ones in charge, but a lot of people do find stuff of value here.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you.
Sure.
For taking time.
Yeah.